Coming up on this episode, we are going to be transforming this beautiful farmhouse table, giving it a makeover with an easy technique that requires very little sanding. So let's get started. Before we get started, I want to give a very warm welcome to all of my DIY Niners, but also to anyone who might be popping over from White Sparrow Living with Wendy. If this is your first time joining my channel, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoy what you see here and choose to stick around for a little while. Now, I have probably for the past year or two been salivating on Pinterest over all of these beautiful French scroll farmhouse tables. They are amazing, they are beautiful, and they're very expensive. So I've just been dreaming about how I could get one of these French scroll tables forever. And then one day, a few months ago, I walked into a thrift store and my jaw hit the floor because I saw this beautiful table and it was marked for $75, which is a massive savings over what I'd been seeing on Pinterest. So it needs a little bit of a makeover, a little bit of love, but the lines are beautiful. It's gorgeous. It must be pretty old. The finish is mostly worn off. The table actually extends pretty far and becomes a massive table because the leaves actually sit underneath this top piece, which is awesome, but then it tucks away and it's a normal size table. If you've ever refinished a dining room table before and had to sand, it is quite the job because if you don't sand it down to the bare wood like everywhere and you miss a spot when you go to stain it, it just looks weird. It doesn't work out right. But I wanted to try something a little bit different because I did these candlesticks a couple of months ago on an episode, and I'll link it down below if you're interested. And it was kind of like a lime wash, and it really took some ugly wood and turned it into a really cool finish. And I decided I wanted to try that on the top part of my table. This technique will allow me to not sand it down as much because we're going to be using some antiquing waxes and some paint and just kind of giving it this limed aged look that you'd see on a lot of these tables anyways. And we're going to try this technique on the tabletop. What do you think of that finish? Pretty cool, right? The good news with this technique is you don't have to be as meticulous as you would need if you were going to be staining it a different color or anything like that. You won't get that tiger striping. So we're gonna just take this outside and sand it, give it a pretty decent sanding. We don't have to be too crazy, but just sand away. And I'm gonna use an electric sander. So let's get sanded. Before we paint, we need to do a little prep. Make sure to tape off any areas you don't need to paint. And then we are going to take plastic and cover areas that we don't want paint to get on either. All right, so I'm getting ready to paint this, and I've decided to use a paint sprayer and some Oops paint that I lucked out on several months ago. I got some white Oops paint. That almost never happens, but I did. And I've used it on a couple of things, and I've got plenty of it here. No rhyme or reason why I'm using it over chalk paint other than I have it on hand. And it's gonna be on the bottom side. If it gets scuffed up or banged up, we're gonna be distressing it anyway, so I think it will be fine. And I'm gonna use my new paint sprayer that I got off of Amazon. It's a handy little tool. It's awesome. And the reason why I'm doing that is I think it's going to dry faster, and I'm also going to be able to get a nice smooth finish. I actually picked up a bench at Hobby Lobby that matches it really good. It has like the same lines and everything. We're going to be using it with the table, and it's already painted white, so this is perfect. To use the paint sprayer, I put a couple of tablespoons of water in here, not much, just to thin it out a little bit because the paint is rather thick. We'll go ahead and pour it into here. And then the lid, it comes separately like this, and then you just twist it on, and then once it's on, then we can connect it to the main body. So it's kind of like a 3-step process. It's actually really simple to use. One of the reasons I'm doing this inside and not outside is because it's pretty humid outside right now. That kind of makes for some complications when you're painting. Over 60% humidity creates problems when you're painting. So I just decided to do this. This paint sprayer doesn't go crazy. It doesn't have a lot of overspray, but I kind of went overboard anyways with the plastic. I protected my chandelier and everything behind me, but I think that will be just fine. I put plastic over this rug even though it is on its last leg and will probably be replaced shortly. In the meantime, I didn't want it to look totally nasty, so we covered that up as well. And then we will start spraying, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. And it's gonna make the process go a lot faster. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I am collaborating with Wendy over at White Sparrow Living, and I just wanted her to take a second to introduce herself. So here's Wendy.
Thanks, Natalie. Hey, all you Niners. This is Wendy from White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6. And I'm so excited to be teaming up with the beautiful and talented Natalie for this Trash to Treasure episode. So if you like crafting and home decor DIYs on a budget, head on over to my channel as soon as you're done watching Natalie's cutie patootie project. And I'll show you how I give new life to these old, outdated, and thrifted items, transforming them into beautiful home decor pieces. I hope everyone has a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Now back to Natalie.
Here we go. All right, time for coat number 2, flipped over. Okay, I'm really happy with how this is looking so far. I'm gonna actually let the base dry overnight before I do any distressing. But in the meantime, it's dry enough that we can proceed with our next step. Now, this tabletop would never be sanded sufficiently if we were going to be staining it. If you want to stain the top of this, you need to get it all the way down to the bare wood. But for what we're doing, this is just fine, and it's sanded enough that we can proceed. I'm really excited to try this technique and to be able to see if it will work without having to sand everything down. I figure worst case scenario, if it doesn't work, then I sand it all the way down and stain it. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world. It would be a little bit extra work, but I have a sneaking suspicion that this is gonna work out just fine. We're gonna start this process. I'm taking some Folk Art antiquing wax, and I'm gonna put some in this bowl here, and then we're gonna take a cheap chip brush. Like, you don't need to spend a ton of money on this, I promise, because for what we're doing, this will be just fine. We're gonna just dab it on some paper towel and have a paper plate underneath there, and then we're gonna kind of just dry brush it onto our tabletop. And so we're gonna just do that to the entire top, and once we get it on there, we're gonna quickly then take kind of a wet washcloth and like blend it out a little bit so it's not like a harsh look, but more of kind of like a washed look. So we're gonna just keep doing this on the entire top. it's all said and done, we will have only used maybe a couple tablespoons of this white chalk paint on the entire top. So it really takes hardly anything to make a difference. And we're just taking it and very dryly brushing it on, and then we're gonna wipe it off with a wet washcloth and kind of just tone down the look that way. We're going with the grain of the wood, whether that goes this way. In some cases it goes this way, in some cases it goes this way. And then we're just gonna dry brush it on and then wipe it off and do the entire table. All right, now we're gonna just lightly distress the edges with some regular sandpaper. I would not recommend Dollar Tree sandpaper. It kind of shreds. Go get some real stuff. We're almost done. My last step is I'm gonna finish this top with a finishing wax for 2 reasons. First off, it's a little too humid outside for me to do a polyurethane or some kind of lacquer finish. And my bathroom that I usually use for these type of circumstances is not big enough for this dining table. And the second reason is because, knowing me, I like to change my dining tables, and so this finishing wax will work perfectly if for some reason I get bored and change my mind. I had one dining table that I think I changed like 7 or 8 times. So this might not be the only incarnation of this table, so stay tuned for those episodes maybe. But I'm really happy with this look for now, and we're just gonna get this on. Okay, so this is as simple as wax on, wax off. So we're just gonna put it on, leave it on for, I think it's like 5 minutes or so. Let me see, what does it say? 5 to 10 minutes. And then we'll come back and wipe it off. So just get a generous amount and start working it into our table. And this will just provide a protective layer for it. And then if you need to reapply this down the road, it's a pretty easy process if you feel like it needs another layer. I am thrilled with the final results. It was probably one of the easiest refinishes I've done on a dining room table, and redoing a thrift store version of my Pinterest-inspired dining table saved me thousands of dollars in the end. You gotta love that. The bench that I got at Hobby Lobby matches extremely well, and within the next few weeks I will be doing a furniture flip on some Pottery Barn dining chairs I found on Facebook Marketplace that I think match the set very well. If you enjoyed this episode, here's another one that I think you'll like as well. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to my channel. I'd love for you to stick around. And to all of my DIY Niners, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye.